Thank you for joining the American Culinary Federation today as we take you inside America's kitchens. Today we are at the legendary Greenbrier Resort in West Virginia, and we'll be speaking to Chef Brian Skelding. I'm Jackie Pressinger, Director of Strategic Partnerships, and looking forward to having you join us today. Chef Skelding, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you found yourself at this amazing resort here in West Virginia?
Sure. So I started back here in 2002. I came here based on a chef that did the apprenticeship program here. His name was Tom Long. He graduated in 1989, and I met him when I was living in Honolulu, Hawaii. And he sent me to go work with Chef Hankey. He was in Columbus, Ohio. Chef Hankey was the executive chef here as well, back in the early to mid 80s. And when I came here, I really came here just for 1 year, to be honest. And I wanted to work in the tavern room. That was like the creme de la creme, the fine dining and the Dover sole table side and all that stuff. But I really fell in love with the community here and the culture in the kitchens. I've used this story before as I'm from Midwest Wisconsin, and I remember walking down White Sulphur Springs one day because I lived right downtown, and a gentleman stopped by and he said hello to me as I was like, I don't know you. I was like, we don't do that in Wisconsin. So right away, that friendliness, that atmosphere really just kind of permeates with the type of people that we all work with day in and day out. So for me, that was really kind of eye-opening, and working here has just been a pleasure ever since. But for me, the most precious thing is the people I work with every day, for sure.
Excellent. Chef, over the past 7 years, you've made a lot of great changes to the dining operations, and I'd love to hear about all of the outlets that you oversee here at the Greenbrier.
Well, so we have 14 kitchens, and we have 8 full-time restaurants. On top of those restaurants, we also have a very large banquet operation, which does right around 13 million of our 40 million in food and beverage revenue. And of course, we have in-room dining, 24 hours a day operation, as well as we have different lounges and bars, and of course, halfway houses all around the golf courses. So all in all, there's 20 food and beverage operations on property.
Amazing. And so what is the size of your staff to run all of this food and beverage?
So believe it or not, it actually takes really right at 200 culinarians to run without overtime. Most of us chefs know that that's really not a reachable goal, but you got to have those goals that aren't reachable to hopefully get as close as you can to excellence. And that'd be with no overtime. So like last year, I ran right at about 167 was the most that I had at any given time, plus managers. So that 200 also equates into the managers because there's a chef de cuisine for essentially every kitchen as well.
How has business been since reopening?
Business has been phenomenal, actually. So we were planning on opening right around Memorial Weekend. We started planning a couple weeks out, getting ready for that. And you hope opening up on such a normally busy holiday that things would go really well. Well, they went splendidly well, and we really reached the maximum of what we could do. We were over 1,000 guests. We had most of the operations open as it relates to restaurants. We were still underneath the mandate where we couldn't have the casino or the pool open. So that restricted us a little bit, but then that eased up on June 6th. And from then, we've been pushing, 90% occupancy. We're looking at almost 80% occupancy for the whole month of July. And we also, in a director's meeting today, our director of rooms said normally she has 300 voicemails on average through the week, and she's at 2,000 right now on average week to week, with just people wanting to book here. So it's a good problem to have. Super excited to be here. We have a different stress than we had 6 weeks ago, for sure.
Well, for sure, and I'm glad to hear those numbers. I know it's going to give a lot of hope to the chefs who are tuning in that business will be coming back and come back strong. Chef, as it relates to group business, what did you do and how did you communicate with your guests?
So group business, Carrie Baldwin and myself, Carrie's director of event services, as well as some of the sales team, we started thinking about what are the guests going to be looking for and how can we deliver the experience that they're looking for as it relates to groups. So we started to put a small banquet rep together that consisted of some options, some Greenbrier options, because that's one thing we want to do is reopening, is we wanted to still deliver the Greenbrier experience. Otherwise, we don't want to reopen. Otherwise we wait and figure out what the mandates are going to come to and we do it from there. But we put together a small banquet rep that we could easily send out to any of the groups. It had some of the guidelines in there, talked about what our scenario was for buffets. Because we weren't allowed to do self-service buffets, we decided to try to get everyone to do more choice menus, box lunches, box breakfasts, as well as like action stations. So we do some dinner actions, like we have a wedding this weekend that they originally wanted a buffet. So what we're doing is we're taking some of those chunks of their buffet that they were going to do and just separate them all around the room and have, a chef just doing a little salad where they're just almost like tapas portions. There's some service that's involved in that, as maybe servers are helping maybe slice some different meats or help give some things to the guests, maybe from the bar. So it's been a learning curve, and it's very fluid. So that banquet rep really helped us out a lot, as well as the sales team and event service team was here day in and day out, talking to the guests daily, reaching out to them, hey, here's where we're at, what do you think about this, let's customize that. So that was really, a very personable experience for everybody.
Absolutely, communication seems really key.
Yeah, absolutely. Communication is, as you know, being in the culinary industry, communication is always key for sure. Yeah.
Chef, can you share any challenges that you've had to overcome since the reopening?
So the one challenge that really, because we have been so busy, is we can do 50% occupancy in the restaurants, and also tables of 6. That's the largest that we can do. So what we had to do is really think about how each of these dining rooms are going to look like. We had to pull some tables out, move some chairs around. We also adjusted our reservation system to also only allow so many guests at a certain time. For example, our steakhouse has 130 seats. Well, we know we can't go over 65 seats. So we adjusted open table in order to, so we can manage that and it can't be overbooked. So that was one of the biggest things that we've had to deal with and still deal with, because not all guests honestly always understand our situation, and we're just as honest and upfront as we can and take when we can.
Right, and do you see a lot of guests who want to dine traditionally in the dining rooms, or are people looking at outdoor dining options, room service options?
Room service has done very well. Room service is always kind of like a firehouse. It's like, it's so quiet and all of a sudden then the bell rings and then it's just fast and furious. We did purchase a tent and put it outside Prime 44 patio, our steakhouse. That way allowed for another 48 seats. And keep in mind that tent also allowed us to use that as a full occupancy, so we could still then, bring in that many more into the full reservation system in order to meet those guidelines. And honestly, with going from spring into summer so quickly and being in West Virginia, one day it's cold, one day it's rainy, the next day it's 90, it seems like. So there's days where it does really, really well, and then there's days where maybe it's a little humid and people don't want to sit outside and they rather get some air conditioning.
All right. Well, at least there's a lot of options.
Yeah, we like having options, yeah.
Chef, with such a large team, how are you handling social distancing in your kitchens?
So we're fortunate. Most of our kitchens are rather sized. You see the main kitchen here. There could be 50 cooks working here at some point. But what we do is we just gotta, manage it, move people around if a culinarian starts to get a little bit too close. We have the mask, our face masks on, so that always kind of helps as well. But we just got to manage it daily, because human beings, we all kind of have a tendency to go back towards our normal habits, So, but it hasn't been too much of a challenge. It really hasn't.
So, Chef, what hurdles have you had to overcome, both with closing down and reopening, as it pertains to staffing?
So closing down was challenging because we have a lot of J1 visas here at the property, both front of the house, back of the house. And with everyone not knowing what's going to happen, especially with international travel, or when are we going to open back up, what's the country going to do, this kitchen actually looked like a human resource department for about 3 days. As myself and Chef Jones and Diane, we worked with all these students, figuring out who can stay, do they want to stay, can they stay based on the Department of State guidelines. So we had about 9 of them stay and sign off that they wouldn't meet maybe the 32 hours a week that's mandated by the Department of State. And the rest of them, we finished all their, we gave them all their certificates of completion, because we don't want anyone to, I would never punish someone for not finishing, because technically they did, and they did a great job for us. So that was difficult. And then of course reopening when you don't have a lot of your staff because they went away, as well as honestly, with the government and the extra $600 you get a week, I don't have a ton of full-time resumes just showing up on my desk. But I have had a good bit. I've spoken to people all the way as far as Hawaii, as close as West Virginia and Virginia. So other resorts that aren't opening, there's culinarians that are calling and asking about it. And I've been fortunate. I've hired 49 culinarians in the last 3 weeks.
Wow.
So I've been really, really lucky. Been talking to a lot of friends and colleagues and just trying to find people who are looking for work. And it's been a great experience, because those that show up are just so eager, because they've been without a paycheck in some cases almost 3 months. It's been crazy.
Well, and I'm sure a lot of the chefs and culinary students who are tuning in are obviously going to give the Greenbrier a good look after this as well. So hopefully we'll find some.
I got a few more spots. Yeah, I got a few more.
Chef, can you let us know a little bit more about the apprenticeship program here at the Greenbrier?
Sure. It's always tough to put into words, but the couple things I'll tell you is the history of the food and the culinary operations here means so much to me, and we stand on the shoulders of those before us. And it was started by Herman Roosh back in 1957, and there weren't a lot of culinary schools around back then, and he used that as a way to recruit and train local applicants. And still today, that's the main purpose of it, is to really help train and build a backbone to the culinary team here. And not only does it push the culinarians to learn, but it's a tremendous impact on all of us as managers to research things, read cookbooks, offer suggestions, talk about flavors, what's trending right now. So it's a very evolving apprenticeship program. It changes every year, it changes month to month even, based on, again, we make it personable, how we talked about like with group business and communication. So what I've done is, in order to try to paint a better picture, is I started up an Instagram account about 3 years ago now. And I post every now and then just what does a day in the life look at the Greenbrier from a culinary side of things. And then just about 2 weeks ago, I started a YouTube channel called the Greenbrier Kitchen.
Yes.
Have one video on there, and we're going to do maybe one a month or one every other month. Next, we're going to focus on some of the kitchens. But the main thing is when we did graduation, and Chef Kevin Walker, CMC, and Chef Fred Teese from Johnson & Wales were here. And Chef Walker said, he said, you should really look at doing like a video of the day in the life of an apprentice. And he goes, everyone's looking at YouTube these days. So I emailed him 2 weeks ago and said, hey, why don't you check out Greenbrier Kitchen on the YouTube? And he sent me a note right back, and he said, that's just awesome. So we're pretty excited. Our Greenbrier webpage has our open jobs, as well as has an apprenticeship page as well. So that there's videos in there, there's a little blurb on what the apprenticeship is. And of course, anyone can ever call or reach out to me, DM me on Instagram. It's no problem.
Sure. And how long is the apprenticeship program?
So at first it sounds like a long time, it's 3 years, but I can tell you it goes by in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
It really does. It's fast and furious, the camaraderie is unbelievable. I think that's some of the favorite things apprentices I hear after graduating is the friendships that they make, as well as just the fundamentals that they learn. Everything from souffles, how to make an omelet, butchery, charcuterie, how to run a grill in a steakhouse, how to make sushi and infusion. We cover the whole gamut. I mean, we have so many different styles of food here. It's so much to learn, so much to learn.
So, Chef, this all sounds fabulous. For those who might be interested, do you have any full-time positions available now?
I do. So what I'm really in the need for right now are just some good solid line cooks. I have a couple things posted on the website as it relates to a couple different restaurant locations. But of course, it's always, I try to find the right seat on the bus for people. So I was talking to a young man the other day down in Georgia, and we talked about all the restaurants, and the main dining room suited him perfectly. So he's going to come up here and start working for us in the main dining room, as well as a couple sous chef positions. I also have a couple bakers position open, as well as a pastry chef. So, but they're all on the website. Anyone can check them out. But yeah, absolutely.
Chef, mentoring seems like it's such an important part of the Greenbrier Culinary Team's success. Who have been your mentors?
So some of my earliest culinary mentors were actually Tom Long, who I mentioned a little earlier ago, because I did meet him in Hawaii. And he was really kind of the first gentleman outside of Wisconsin, first chef, if you would, that told me about the Greenbrier. I'd never heard of it. And I've been here 3 times, so I'm on my 3rd tour. It's my longest tour. Going on 11 years on my 3rd tour. But each time that I've looked at coming back here, I've always made a call to him and to see what he thought. And every time he's like, you're an idiot if you don't go there. He's like, you know the answer to that. So he's been one of my biggest mentors. And then, of course, being here as long as I have, you have your chef Rich Rosendale and your chef Peter Timmons. So I learned so much from those gentlemen. So those were some of my more, my latest mentors, if you would. And then the other one that comes to mind is Chef Lawrence Mcfadden, also a CMC out of Cleveland right now. So he really helped me kind of reinvigorate the apprenticeship program. We went to a more tasted scenario as opposed to everything was cold food and mystery baskets at the time. And now everything is tasted. Every pate and croûte, every canopy, every terrine is tasted now. So he really helped me. He was a judge 3 years in a row, and each year we kind of gradually tried a couple things and worked on what does graduation look like, what do the meetings look like. So those were the gentlemen that come to mind first and foremost.
So, Chef, what advice would you have for those who are coming into the industry, the young chefs, the culinary students? Love to hear.
For me, it's get in the field, get in the kitchen. Doesn't matter what kind of kitchen it is. If there isn't something that is around you that is maybe fine dining, you got to understand how a kitchen works, and we call it kitchen common sense. Get uncomfortable, find people that are passionate about cooking, find teams that are passionate about working together, And there's times where you're not going to enjoy it, I'll be honest. But those are the times where you learn things that maybe you don't want to do, or a management style that you don't want to emulate. But that's just part of the growing process, because you learn so much from mistakes, or so much from things that maybe are outside your comfort zone, whether good or bad, and it just shapes you who you are today. So that's one thing I always talk to as I'm recruiting the young culinarians is, it's the first thing I look at a resume. If someone is going to culinary school, I look in and see not only what the reference is, but also is, have you been working? Or are you, just sitting in your dorm room and, just going to class? And I'm going to say that's because of experience. I originally went to school for accounting, and my first summer after graduating high school, I think maybe the first day or the first week, I knew I wasn't going to be an accountant. I just knew. And I went back to the kitchens where I ultimately started, and one day I said, I'm going to go to culinary school. And I worked full time doing it as I went to culinary school, and there's just some things in life that you just know instantly that was the right call. And for me, that's what it was.
So Anne, if you could let us know a little bit more about your role here at the Greenbrier and how you found yourself working at the amazing resort.
I'm Ann Sims. I'm the Purchasing Logistics Controller of the Greenbrier. And I began my career here 32 years ago in the food store room as a purchasing clerk, doing purchase orders for food entry. Evolved over the years through retail control, point of sale, retail. Now I'm back into food. I manage the food storeroom and the wine storeroom and provide as much support as I possibly can to the food operation.
Wow. In a resort this size, I have to imagine that's a huge, huge job.
It is, but it's not one I do alone. I have a team of 10, and we actively do everything we can to support the kitchens. We procure the food and do the receiving and fill the orders for all of the kitchens on property. It is quite a task. We're open 7 days a week, 365, because people always eat, and we want to make sure they have the best experience possible. I work a lot with the mapping of the general ledger and things to accounting as well from our purchasing system. So I support Chef Jones and Chef Skelding as much as I can with reporting, food cost controls, and those type of things. And recently we've been taking on more with the beverage control aspect.
And I've heard there's a Greenbrier COVID task force. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, the resort our owner wanted to be proactive in ensuring the health and safety of our team members and, of course, all of our guests that choose to come here. So a COVID task force was established. It includes our Vice President of Operations, Vice President of Human Resources, our Director of Security, our Compliance and Safety Officer, and as well as our Purchasing Manager and myself. And we are just following daily the fluid situation that is happening with the COVID guidelines. The Governor of West Virginia has rolled out a statewide guidelines for us to follow week by week. We've experienced a few challenges there because of some of the nature of our resort of having combined, I would call hybrid departments, like our outdoor pool, where we have a food outlet and a recreation mingled together, and those came out on different guidelines. So what we're doing, we are actually reviewing the guidelines daily with and comparing, of course, the guidelines from the state are written in relation with the CDC guidelines. So we are also making ourselves available to every team member here. We are addressing guest concerns, employee team member concerns on a daily basis. We are making sure that we are in adherence to all of the guidelines. We are doing the 50% occupancy in each outlet. We are nearly doing walkthroughs of every single aspect of the resort before it reopens to our guests. Currently, we are reopened in the majority of those. We have, of course, put guidelines in place. The casino, for instance, maybe every other slot machine is available, limited table seating, similar to what we're doing in the restaurants as well. Removing bar stools, limiting the number of seats. We've removed tables, we've removed chairs. We have provided PPE to our employees. We're doing the distancing, making sure that if anyone is in close proximity, all employees are screened upon entry of the resort. We are taking temperature checks and asking screening questions to follow the guidelines. We are also providing masks, gloves, all the PPE that we feel is necessary to comply, as well as maintain, again, the safety of our guests. We want them to have a great experience while we're here. We don't want it to feel like a sterile, unwelcoming environment, but we want to make sure we're doing everything we can to protect everyone. And we're currently meeting, again, like I said, we have standing meetings 3 days a week. We are also meeting daily if needed. And it's been a very good response from both the guests and the team members. And again, we're addressing concerns as they come up. I feel like we've covered all the bases, but again, the situation is so fluid, it's changing from day to day. So we are, again, reviewing them daily and making adjustments on the fly as necessary.
Right, and I mean, I noticed it even before getting onto hotel property. There was temperature checks for everyone coming through the gates.
Absolutely.
As we were coming up, those who were greeting us had masks. There was signage everywhere. There's hand sanitizer as soon as you're coming into the resort and in the public spaces.
Absolutely.
So you can see it from the moment you show up.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. It means it's working.
So in preparation for reopening, did you all create protocols, checklists for food and beverage? Share.
Actually, as Chef was working on staffing to bring back to work, we also started in the food store and working on protocols and how we were going to procure product and get it delivered. There's been a real challenge with the markets trying to get product in, where we normally could place an order by 3 o'clock and have it at 7 a.m. the next morning. We're having to think ahead and figure out how we were going to do that. But we did do checklists. We actually, with the COVID task force help, established a delivery process. The people in the food store that do the unload of the trucks now wear double gloves. They wear masks at all times. They, of course, do the screening as they come to work each day with the COVID questions, screening questions, and mask wearing. We also began having the drivers with each company stay in their truck. They come on property, they unload, they give us the invoices and everything to check in the product, and then we have them remain in their truck. They are also screened either by we have statements that they are screened by their companies before they ride the truck, or they are screened by our security guards as well as they come onto the property. So we've changed our whole vendor list as far as how they get on property. They have to have an appointment. There are no drop-in vendors now for sampling or anything like that. Everything has to go through a PO process. It has to come through our guards for a check-in and screening, just like any other employee. But we do have them stay in their trucks now, and we unload everything and only bring them back into property if there's a problem with the order. And then we sign the papers, and again, we provide them with mask and hand sanitizer if they do need to come in to witness anything. So that's been a big challenge for us. A little on the back of the house side, but it definitely is vital because we wanted to make sure that as the cartons and everything are coming in, the guys are wearing double gloves. They are not handling any cardboard boxes or any containers that are coming in without gloves. They're using hand sanitizer, hand washing. We're trying to make sure we're following, again, all the COVID guidelines, and even stepping up a step further by limiting the number of people that can just come into the resort. They still have to be screened and have a purpose for being here.
Sure. Well, that certainly seems above and beyond. It's great for safety. And Chef, how about for the kitchens and the dining rooms?
So we started putting a list together based on the mandates, as well as just kind of reminding everyone about some of the normal, things that we deal with every day in a kitchen. Obviously, we deal with perishable goods, we deal with germs, we deal with bacteria, we deal with temperatures, danger zones, all that stuff. So for us, it wasn't too much of a stretch. Some of the biggest things that were maybe a change was definitely keeping an eye on hand washing, scrubbing down stations before you get on the stations. Again, normal stuff, but just really managing it and doing it more frequently, especially the hand washing. And then I would say probably social distancing, make sure everyone's wearing their masks. As we wear these masks, they have a tendency to wear out. Whether it be how hot it is or because you got to taste your food, you got to keep moving these masks around. For culinary, that was probably the biggest stretch. As it relates to the front of the house team members, we started laminating most of the menus, so those need to be wiped down, sanitized, sanitizing stations on all of the side stands, so that anytime a guest gets up or a table needs to be flipped, it's not just cleared, it's sanitized. Arms of the chairs, backs of the chairs, salt and pepper shakers. So with that, the dining rooms look very empty, all rolled silverware. Essentially, there's nothing on the table except for the linen once you sit down. That way we can sanitize everything in the back and then bring every piece of equipment or food item that you need as your dinner progresses. So.
Sure. And as a chef too, I know that sanitation is sort of inherent in all that we do. So it seems like you're doing things that are upgrading in this time.
Essentially, yeah. A few extra hand sanitizer stations here and there. And then we also put checklists. There's daily checklists that each of the kitchens have to do, just as a way to get into a new normal or new habits that we're really just, again, it's a human element. And I'm just as guilty of straying away from maybe an old habit or a new habit just as anyone else is. So those checklists, I've always been a checklist guy, and having those checklists really just kind of helps you all right, I got to double check this, this, and this today, or I saw a problem area with that. I need to go talk to so-and-so. So those checklists have been very, very crucial for us.
Yes, I love it. Chef Jones, could you please let us know a little bit about your role here at the Greenbrier and how you ended up here in beautiful West Virginia?
Absolutely, Jackie. So I actually graduated from the University of Maryland with a degree in criminal justice. While I was at school, for whatever reason, I didn't like eating in the dining halls, so I started cooking in my dorm room. And by the time I graduated, I figured out I didn't want to do anything with criminal justice. So I went back to school to get a degree in culinary arts. I went to school in Baltimore. When I was in school, I met a certified master pastry chef. His name was Jan Bandula, who was friends with the, at the time, executive chef of the hotel, Peter Timmons. So he said, hey, I know this place in West Virginia. It's a huge place. They have restaurants, they have banquets. You should go down there. You know, Peter's a great guy. You'll learn a lot from him. So I've never been to West Virginia before, and so I came down and visited. I talked to one of my predecessors, Chef Mengel, was the one who hired me. He's actually still here, and based upon that one visit, I said, okay, I'm gonna pack up and move to West Virginia, and I did, and that was in 2005. So I worked here from 2005 to 2008. And then while working here, I met Michael Valtaggio. He ran the Old Tavern restaurant for 1 year and then Hemispheres for a year. So I got to work with him up there. And then I moved to Los Angeles and worked with Michael in opening Jose Andres restaurant, The Bazaar. Worked at a couple other places and then finally made my way back here in 2011. So, and then I assumed my current role in 2016. So I've been executive sous chef for, this will be my 5th season.
That's wonderful. I'm noticing a pattern too. A lot of people are working here and then they get drawn back.
They come back. I mean, it's a great place to live. So, especially if you're into outdoors, you like to fish. I would say that probably all of the chef de cuisines, either fish, hunt, mountain bike, or just like being outdoors. So it's a great place to be. So.
And what's your favorite part about working here at the property?
My favorite part is the variety. You can go, from a restaurant to a banquet. We've had PGA Tour events. We had the Greenbrier Classic, which was a military tribute to the Greenbrier for 10 years. So we had that. We've also had training camps for NFL teams, the Texans and the Saints held here. So 40, usually on average, about 40 weddings a year. So the variety here, and that's kind of the selling point that I'll talk to when hiring students or cooks is, you can go to another place that maybe just does banquet food and you'll learn a good bit there. But if you come here, you can work in the banquet kitchen, you can work in a steakhouse, you can go and work in infusions and learn how to roll sushi, or at the Forum and learn how to make pizza pies. So the variety is one of the things that I love about it. And my kids live here, so I get to see them. They live about a mile down the road from me, so that's the other best part. And they love to come in here. My daughter's actually been in about 3 times to hang out and cook with me, so that's great too.
That is awesome. I love it. You almost have me sold. Maybe I'm going to move to West Virginia.
Sure, we're hiring. You can go on our website. It's thegreenbrier.com under employment.
All right.
And look up the job list.
Keep an eye out. You mentioned young chefs, though, so I do want to touch on that. What is your advice to those young chefs or those who are thinking about coming into the industry and perhaps might want to work here in the future?
The benefit of working here is that a lot of people will say that, well, it's not in a big city, but that, to me, that was the benefit. There weren't distractions everywhere. You go to work and you go home, and most of the Main Street shuts down at 9 o'clock, and that's fine because like my dad always told me, nothing good ever happens after midnight. So there's no reason to stay out that late. But I would say that's the biggest benefit is the focus that you can put into your craft and just working instead of being distracted by everything else.
In getting to know everyone here at the resort even more, I can see that mentorship is key. So I'm wondering if you might be able to share with us who your mentors are.
So I would say that my biggest mentor has been my dad. he doesn't have a culinary bone in his body. He can barely. I have a story about him calling me how to cook ribs and potatoes, and I went through the whole recipe with him for 10 minutes, and then he finally told me that, oh no, they're already cooked. I just need to know how to heat them up. He didn't even know how to heat up ribs. But all jokes aside, his work ethic is next to none. I mean, I just growing up seeing him, he doesn't work in the culinary industry, but the dedication he put into his career, working nights and weekends when he had to support his family, my brother, my mom, just kind of, that's inspiring to me. So my dad.
Well, it seems like it rubbed off.
Thank you. I hope so, just a little bit.
And a little bit off topic with that, do you have a favorite restaurant or food service outlet on property or one that's most special to you?
On property, it would probably be the main kitchen. This is the line that I learned to cook on, where I kind of like grew up. When I started here in 2005, we only had 4 restaurants at the time. And I remember my first night here, it was actually like June 16, 2005. I went to my pre-shift meeting, I was super nervous, and we sit down, and the chef de cuisine at the time said that we're going to do 660 people in this. And I said, that's in the hotel, right? Not so. 660 people in the main dining room was my first service, and I think I started on Pantry Station, so I made 300 Caesar salads and probably another 200 iceberg salads, and scooped about 400 scoops of ice cream. So I would say working, having memories like that and working on this line was probably my favorite restaurant.
Well, that's excellent. And I also love for the chefs who are tuning in too to see that you started on the Pantry Station and you're now all the way up with the executive sous chef of the whole resort.
Yeah, I mean, and the idea around that is you have to know every station in the kitchen. If somebody comes in, they say, well, I'm not going to work salad station. I'm just going to cook beef because that's the most important station in the kitchen. Well, it's not. They're all important. And as you grow as a chef, as you get experience and get promoted, you need to know how to run the pantry station or the dessert station, so you can teach other people how to, and so that you can run a better business. So I'm all about learning and grassroots in the kitchen, especially. So.
Yeah, well, absolutely, and I think it shows that there's no shortcuts to hard work and dedication.
Absolutely not.
I know during this pandemic, it's been a very challenging time. When did the Greenbrier actually close its doors?
So the decision to close the hotel was made on March 18th. So that we would close on the following day at noon, and then that gave us about 24 hours to get most of the guests out of here. Obviously, they needed to make plans and arrangements to get home, and then we had all of our guests were out of here on the 20th.
Wow.
So, and then fast forward 2 months, and then we reopened on May the 22nd. So we opened that Friday. So 2 months, a little over 2 months to the day. So.
Oh my gosh. Well, I know with so much food and beverage that you all do here at the resort, what did you do with all of the perishable food when you had to close down?
We kind of put everything in the boxes that we could either freeze, like our sauces, we would cryovac them, a good portion of our proteins. Obviously, some of our prepared foods we had to discard, due to laws about donating. But the perishable fruits and vegetables that we had in the storeroom, we went through, I forget how many, it was about 16,000 pounds of food that we were able to distribute to local shelters or charities that were then able to give to people who had lost their jobs or been laid off, kind of like a pickup. They put a bunch of fruit in a bag, a bunch of veggies, and then the residents of Greenbrier County were able to come over, get that, and then take it back to their home. So
that's wonderful that you were able to make those arrangements for all that product.
Absolutely. I hate throwing food away.
So as your team members started coming back to work, what were some of the biggest changes that had to be made?
So number one, I would say, would be the security checks when coming on property. So we have tents at our main gate, primarily for guests, and then we have a tent at our security gate number 2, which is our employee entrance. So the employees come in, it's cordoned off, you have to follow the ropes, You get a temperature check and you get a mask, and they ask you a series of 6 questions. Have you been exposed to anyone that's been diagnosed with COVID? Have you been out of state? And then based upon those questions, the security team determines whether or not you're able to come into work.
Every day.
Every day, every shift actually.
Wow.
So if a lot of our front of the house staff work multiple shifts during a day, so when they leave property and come back on, they have to cycle through the process all over again.
Wow. Okay, well, that's great. That's great to know.
I just want to say a quick thank you to Jackie Persinger and Alan Sterling for taking the time out of their busy schedule and coming up here to check out the Greenbrier. We really appreciate it. We had a great time. Great to get the info out there. We're super excited with how busy we are and sharing that with everyone. If you ever have any questions, if you want more information about what we did with our protocols or how we communicated to our guests, easy, just shoot me a DM on Instagram or send me an email. And also too, hope everyone starts thinking about maybe the summer or the fall, and you can either come up here a little R&R with your family, or perhaps you may know a young culinarian that's just starting out that may want to move away from home and come to a nice rural area and hunker down and learn some good fundamental cooking. So again, thank you again, and appreciate it. Thank you, ACF. Have a good one.
Thank you so much for joining us today as we visited the Greenbrier Resort here in West Virginia. A lot of great information for those who are opening post-pandemic. And please make sure you put this on the list of your next travel destinations. There'll be more episodes coming soon inside America's Kitchens with the American Culinary Federation.